So I want to make another video about MasterChef, and I want to preface it by saying how much respect I have for Sarah Shafi. And I was looking at her Newsnight video last night, and I found it so it was going round and round my head, and I got up quite early this morning because I'm determined to try and talk my way through it. Because her interview, which was very poignant, was then followed by Jacob Rees-Mogg bringing up the issue of Eric Gill's statues and the Stations of the Cross in Westminster Cathedral, and should you suppress art because the artist has done something wrong? My attitude to that is not unlike Jacob Rees-Mogg's. I don't think you should. We don't destroy Caravaggio because Caravaggio was a murderer. And similarly, we shouldn't be destroying Eric Gill. These are works of art, no matter how repugnant the artist may have been. But MasterChef is not a work of art. MasterChef is a work of entertainment, an ongoing entertainment, and it's perfectly possible to re-edit. Indeed, the allegations against Greg Wallace came up while the filming was taking place. And that was a point to start re-editing. The raw footage exists, and somebody was quite happy to go through the raw footage to see whether or not Sarah Shafi's allegations could be substantiated. Where, as she points out, they were probably made off camera. And Greg Wallace was making comments to her which made her feel uncomfortable. And in the light of the 80 or so women who have made allegations since, that makes perfect sense, does it not? There comes a point where you have to take somebody's word for it. If you're prepared to have an interview with somebody, you take their word for it. And if there's already allegations, you take their word. MasterChef, this reality cooking competition, I'm told it's a beloved institution of British television. That's what the BBC markets it as. I'm afraid Lloyd Grossman, I think I saw one or two of his shows. I've never seen it since. I don't watch reality TV. I've been on reality TV. I know the sort of stench that it produces. I know what it's like. It's about a loss of agency. It's about control. And it could be so many more things. It could be so good. But the productions are so desperate to save money, to save time, to get an easy edit by producing this MacGuffin of a contest. They're not interested in the contest. Wake up! They're interested in their little stories and their token contestants who have their journey. And that journey has already been plotted and planned and scripted before the contestants, the participants, even get into the studio. Believe me, if somebody has a big enough character, maybe that story will change moderately. I like to think in the show that I was on that they changed the script because of me. But I know there's a script. I know there's a script. And you just have to face up to that. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I don't think, in the same way as I don't think it's a bad thing to be directed as an actor. But be honest. And that's why it's so important that we review the way these shows, the way reality TV is made. At the moment, this is very much an issue about the mistreatment of women, but it's also about the mistreatment in a broader sense of people, and it's this is a show that could easily have been re-edited. That's the point, and the BBC has decided that it can't be bothered to do that, and the only bit it's edited is to edit Sarah Shafi out, and that is shocking. She's been edited out after voicing her discontent with the situation. The BBC rang up the 50 participants, and she was one who said that she thought that the show itself should be re-edited so that Wallace and Turode were removed from the series if they wanted to screen it. It's perfectly possible. And the solution was they bullied her into agreeing to edit herself out. I don't know whether she actually agreed. I'll have to have a chat with her about that. But certainly her comments on Newsnight, which I found an uncomfortable view. She said, in her experience, the meeting Greg Wallace and doing that show felt like a boys' game. She described an environment where inappropriate behaviour from the male host was normalised and overlooked. And her story emphasises the broader issue of an enabling environment where the actions of powerful men, in the BBC, for example, go unchecked because of a culture surrounding the production. And this aligns with her frustration with the industry's response, suggesting it's not just about the individuals involved, but about the systems that allow such behaviour to persist. And I would go on further from that, and I would say that this is very much the stuff that led to the Jeremy Kyle investigation, the committee hearings in the House of in Westminster, being stopped, never being reconvened after the 2019 election was called, and these Ofcom rules being put in place which favour production. And the BBC has faced significant backlash for continuing to air the series with Wallace and Turode after they were sacked, after the allegations were upheld. And critics, including former contestants or participants and broadcast unions, argue that the show should have been pulled, as airing it signals a disregard for the women whose allegations were substantiated. Sarah, feeling that her discomfort was dismissed, took the radical step of asking for these presenters to be removed from the show. And her request was ignored, and she was the one who was edited out. The BBC's decision to air the series, while minimising Wallace and Turode's on-screen presence, perhaps, is viewed, I think, by her, by me, by others, as a slap in the face to the victims, a slap in the face to the viewers. And on the Newsnight programme on the 31st, you can still find it on the BBC iPlayer. This is then followed by a discussion with a Labour MP and with Jacob Rees-Mogg, both of whom think that the show should be aired, comparing airing MasterChef to keeping the Eric Gill statue outside Broadcasting House, to keeping the statues of the Station of the Cross in Westminster Cathedral. And that argument is absurd. There's a difference between great art and casual entertainment. And MasterChef is primarily entertainment, not great art. And the comparison trivialises the situation, as MasterChef lacks the artistic and the cultural weight of figures like, say, Caravaggio, who was a murderer, or Eric Gill, whose works are part of a larger historical conversation about morality and legacy. And the suggestion that airing a reality TV show is comparable to preserving controversial art obscures the real issue: how the BBC and similar institutions allow power dynamics to thrive unchecked and damage the lives of individuals in the process. Reality TV, especially shows like MasterChef, exploit vulnerable participants who may not fully understand the consequences of their involvement. Many participants like Sarah, are headhunted. I don't know if Sarah was headhunted rather than applying, which is entrapment. I was certainly headhunted, and I don't know people in reality TV, people who I've spoken to. I don't know anybody who applied and who was in the show that they applied for. The secrecy involved in these shows, combined with the intense pressure of competition, makes it difficult for participants to anticipate the emotional toll. The hidden dangers, whether they involve harassment or the trauma of public failure, are seldom adequately addressed in the production process. In the United States, there's an organisation which is developing called UCAN. We don't have that here in the UK. We should. We need to ensure that people who are going on these reality TV shows are properly protected by unions, by management, by agents, and none of that is available. When you go on one of these shows, you are exposed to the wiles of production alone. The case of Sarah Shafi and the broader MasterChef scandal underscores the need for individual accountability in the reality TV industry. And um, Lisa Nandy should be encouraged to reopen the Jeremy Kyle committee. And the committee was a step in the right direction, and seeking to hold reality TV producers accountable for the welfare of contestants is good, but it needs to go beyond that. The Jeremy Kyle committee was stopped when Boris Johnson called the 2019 election, and it was never reconvened. But despite taking evidence from production companies and from four participants only, a reality TV rule system was instituted and is now run by Ofcom. And so if you contact the DCMS or the government or your MP, you will be referred to Ofcom, and Ofcom will then send you around in the sort of circles. It's nonsensical, because the Ofcom rules give significantly more power to reality TV, to the production companies. So, for example, production companies continue to offer psychological support for 18 months after the show has aired. Well, that sounds great, doesn't it? Except that means reality TV has control of those participants for 18 months after the show has aired. And that system was already loosely in place before the investigation, before the committee hearings into the Jeremy Kyle abuse took place. The truncated 2019 review, it demonstrated a failure to grasp the full scale of the issue. It needed to hear from more participants who felt aggrieved, who felt concerned about the way they were treated during the shows and after the shows. Because my argument is it's about a loss of agency. And when you lose agency, it's very difficult to get it back. It's very difficult to get it back. And agency can be taken away by predatory behavior, whether that's the sort of predatory behavior demonstrated in MasterChef, or whether it's predatory behavior simply about forcing people what to say, what to do, and denying them their own decision. Are you sure you meant to say that? Didn't you mean to say blah, blah, blah? And then we get back on script. And Sarah's story reflects the need for this thorough investigation into how these shows impact people's lives. And the scandal surrounding MasterChef reveals a disturbing trend in which powerful individuals are allowed to continue their roles despite significant allegations against them. The BBC's response, minimising the on-screen presence of the host, may be, while continuing to air the show, is a failure to acknowledge the harm done. And it reflects a broader social issue of enabling toxic behaviour by excusing it in the name of entertainment or commercial success. The BBC's decision to air the series, regardless of the allegations, seems to prioritise the show's brand over the well-being of its participants. And that doesn't surprise me, but it disappoints me. As Sarah Shafi has pointed out, the BBC needs to adopt a more self-aware stance and learn from past mistakes. The fact that the series continues to air in its current form without proper acknowledgement of the seriousness of the allegations demonstrates the lack of meaningful reform in the reality TV industry as a whole. It also demonstrates the fact that Tim Davie simply doesn't have control of the BBC. It's time for him to resign, because he clearly isn't able to do his job. There's a need for a broader cultural shift, both in terms of media responsibility and the treatment of individuals who participate in these shows. Until these changes are made, shows like MasterChef will continue to perpetuate environments where exploitation can thrive. The current MasterChef debacle is a microcosm of the larger issues of reality TV, where profit and entertainment outweigh ethical consideration. And by ignoring the voices of those harmed, institutions like the BBC risk losing public trust and reinforcing toxic power dynamics. The real question then is not whether MasterChef should be on TV, but how the industry will change to protect those who make it possible. And entertainment is important. Entertainment is crucially important. And we need it now more than ever. And this democratizing of entertainment through something like reality TV is great. We're just doing it wrongly because the production companies are doing it as cheaply as they possibly can. And because they found that this is an opportunity for more control, more power, and they call it production. I call it control. And there must be a way to make this better. There must be a way to make it better.